So let's move on to the next question, guys. In this question, we are given that during a 40-mile trip, so the total trip is 40 miles, Marla traveled at an average speed of X miles per hour for the first 20 miles. So for the first 20 miles, the average speed was X miles per hour. And for the next 20 miles, the average speed was 1.25x miles per hour. Now it's saying that the time that Marla took to travel the 40 miles, the total time that Marla took to travel the 40 miles is what percent of the time she would have taken if she would have traveled at an average speed of X for the entire trip. Right? So this is the question. Now, so firstly for this, let's calculate the total amount of time initially. So for the first 20 miles, the average speed is X, right? That means the distance is equals to 20, right, for the first 20 miles, and the speed is equals to X, right? So how much will the time be? The time will be 20 upon X. As simple as it can be, right? Similarly, for the next 20 miles, so for the next 20 miles, the distance will again be 20, right? Now the speed becomes how much? 1.25x, right? The speed becomes 1.25x. So how much will the time be? The time will be 20 upon 1.25x, right? So if you basically solve this, 100, so how much will this be? 525, 400, right? So this comes out to be 16. So the time is equals to 16 upon x. So this is one part and this is the other part, right? I hope this should be clear. So what is the total time? So total time is equals to how much? This plus this. The total time for traveling the 40 miles is how much? 20 upon x plus 16 upon x, which is how much? 36 upon x. I hope this should be very clear, right? Okay. So this is the total time to travel 40 miles at an average speed of x for the first 20 miles and then at an average speed of 1.25x for the next 20 miles. So the total time in this case is 36 upon x, right? Now we are given that if the average speed is equals to x for the entire trip, that means that for the entire trip means distance is 40 miles. So distance becomes how much? 40. And the average speed is x. The average speed is x for the entire trip. So for the entire trip means 40 miles and the average speed becomes x, right? So the total time taken will be how much? Then the total time will be 40 upon x. So I hope this is also something which should be very clear, right? Nothing complex in this. So the total time comes out to be 40 upon x, right? I hope this is clear. Now they are saying that the time Marla took to travel 40 miles, which is this. Sorry, the time Marla took to travel 40 miles, which is this, 36 upon x, is what percent of the second situation? Second situation is this, right? So let's suppose y percent of this is this, right? That y percent of the total time over here is equals to this. So y percent into 40 upon x is equals to 36 upon x. I hope this should be clear. So this becomes y upon 100 is equals to x and x will cancel. This becomes 36 upon 40, right? So how much will y be? y becomes 3600 upon 40, which is nothing but 90%. Right? So that means we were asked the time Marla took to travel 40 miles is what percent of the second situation? So that means if we take 90% of this, if we take the 90% of this, we will get this. So this was the question, that what percent of the second situation will we take in order to get this? So if we take 90% of this, so because 9 fours are 36, so we will get 36. So that means 90% of this total time at an average speed of x will give us the total time where the average speed was x for the first 20 miles and the average speed was 1.25x for the next 20 miles. Again, nothing complex. You just have to see what percent of this is this. So if you multiply 9, so 9 fours are 36. So that means 90%. So your answer becomes 90%. So I hope this is pretty simple. First we calculated normal formula, distance is equals to speed into time. So we calculated the total time using the formula. We calculated the sum of the two times, and that is the total time. Then for this, the total distance was 40, the average speed was x. So the total time comes out to be 40 upon x. Now we have to calculate what percent of this is this. So I think this is something which is very basic, and I hope this should be fine.